Hey everybody. So for today's movie review, I'm going to talk about the film Jeff Who Lives at Home. It's a film that I recently rented from a Redbox vending machine. Um, and this was like an independent comedy film by these two brothers that aren't very big right now, but some people think they're going to get bigger in the future, with more comedies and just more films made on their record down the line. But anyway, this one was called Jeff Who Lives at Home. And it stars Jason Segal, Ed Helms, Judy Greere from The Descendants and adaptation. It had Susan Sarandon. It had a bunch of people that I think a lot of people are going to recognize. But anyway, this Jeff guy, he lives at home and he's in his early 30s and he has these drug problems and he can't find a job because of these problems. He's just kind of lazy, like his mom, who's a single mother by the way. I think the father died at some point. They go to his gravesite or something at one point in the movie. Um, and she struggles to kind of let him move on with his life, and he's had like a history of drugs and he can't find work and all this kind of stuff. Ed Helms works for some type of a painting company based off of his uniform, um, and he has kind of these marital problems where his wife doesn't really say anything. um, and through a series of events he kind of finds out that it is a marital marriage problem that she doesn't like to talk about with him. And so, because Jeff is kind of this big believer, like everything happens for a reason. He's a huge fan of the movie Signs. He's always watching it. Um, and he strongly believes everything happens for a reason, that there's something up in the universe somewhere that connects the stars and makes everything the way that they are today, like makes, this an inevitable fate that we all run into at some point. Um, but the story really starts to pick up when this Jeff guy gets this call, keeps getting these calls at his house for a guy named Kevin, and after a while he thinks that there's a significance to this Kevin guy, and so at first he doesn't really know what it is, but because he has to run an errand for his mother anyway, he figured he would look for things that um, had the first name of Kevin for people. Um, if the word Kevin's incorporated into a business somehow. So anything that he can connect to the word Kevin or the name to kind of figure out who this Kevin guy is, because he keeps on getting these calls at his house for it. Um, because he's looking for this, and because he has to run this errand anyway, he does eventually run into a series of events that they don't center around Kevin, but um, there are a bunch of things that connect to his own life that he could help out in. And one of them does deal with something that Ed Helms runs into, which is obviously problems with his marriage. Um, the Jeff does there is a significance to Kevin. You find out near the end of the film, which I won't spoil. But there is a significance behind the whole Kevin thing. Um, and so Jeff is trying to figure out, what is his, where's his place right now? What's his destiny, and what's the whole significance with this Kevin guy? Um, and there's also two subplots, like I said, one with the marriage thing with Ed Helms, and there's another subplot that deals with his Jeff's mother believing she has a secret admirer at work, but it kind of goes down this dark road, and you'll find out in the movie it's kind of a completely different direction than the mother thought it was going to be. Um, but anyway, guys, Jeff Who Lives at Home is a good film. I did enjoy it. Um, I kind of like going to the positive and negatives here. Um, I liked the whole everything happens for a reason message behind it. I thought the musical score was very good. It definitely had this whole feeling of this Jeff guy kind of being bored and trying to figure out what his inevitable fate is. So a very fitting musical score to this movie. Ed Helms, Susan Sarandon, and Judy Greere were all great in this. They all did something in this film I thought was very special and really added to the movie. Um, the significance of Kevin was always built upon very well. And I like how, and like I said, I won't spoil it, but I like how in the end they kind of show the significance behind the name Kevin and kind of how it applies to Jeff's own life. Um, I liked the whole connecting of signs in the universe message. Like I said, Jeff was big into the whole Signs movie by M. Night Shyamalan. And so he's always trying to figure out ways that these connecting signs in the universe are trying to, you know, um, get us to think and kind of figure out what our own inevitable fate is in life. Um, There was a few negatives about this film, you guys. The first thing that really bothered me the most in this is there really was no follow through with the subplots. Ed Helms and the Susan Sarandon subplot alone, just not a lot of follow through. Like they go through it pretty well, but there's really no conclusion to those two subplots because they want to make sure that the whole Jeff and the Kevin significance gets answered. Um, it was really too bad because I think all three of them would have worked. And I actually have another negative here. I think the film really could have improved upon and improved upon this if they did this as well. Um, yeah, there was just a lot of things. Was like, okay, that kind of answers what happened, but they didn't go into full detail of the big solution behind it. So I really wish they kind of followed through with these subplots because they really don't give you answers to those two. They really only give you the answer to the central plot of the movie. Um, I liked how it was an offbeat comedy, but unfortunately, because it is, it might not be for everybody. I think it's just one of those things where you got to understand what they're going for in order to really get into it. And because it is such a selective taste in humor, and the thing is, that this movie was a drama, but there, like I said, there was some selective tastes of humor throughout, and it might not be for everybody because of that selective taste of offbeat comedy. And here's where I thought the follow through thing could have also improved upon. I think this would have helped out a lot. The film was very short. It's only like an hour and 22 minutes. And because it's only that short, I really think they could have spent another 10, 20, if not another 30 minutes to really kind of conclude those two subplots. I think if they added, another 20 minutes, it doesn't have to be near the end, it can be somewhere in the middle of the movie. I think it really, really benefited the movie. I think it would have, um, those subplots would have been answered, and the whole Jeff and Kevin thing would have been answered as well. Um, there was comedy in this, you guys, but I really think this film could have used more humor. I think it was one of those things where they tried to make sure the scenes that were dramatic remained dramatic, and in order to do that, they had to limit the comedy. Um, I think I think the scenes where it really was funny were funny, and I think they could have had more of those. Maybe they just kind of played it safe a bit. I don't know what the deal with that was. But maybe add a little bit more humor in the film. I think that would have been a lot better. Um, Also, make sure you see the film Signs before seeing this movie. There's just a lot of references to it. Jeff actually spoils the whole movie at the beginning of Jeff Who Lives at Home. So if you haven't seen Signs, make sure you see that before seeing this movie because of the fact that they pretty much do spoil that whole film in this movie. But it's been around for years. I know Shyamalan's career isn't big right now, but either way, just make sure you see it just before watching this movie because it almost makes you respect the film more because you're now aware of that film that Jeff admires a lot. Um, but it's a good film, you guys. Like I said, I really wish it just kind of followed through with more of the things they were trying to go for. But other than that, if you're just looking for a good movie to watch, this is definitely the one to watch. If you like Jason Segal or Ed Helms or Susan Sarandon or Judy Greere, who I know hasn't been a lot, but if you've seen some of her stuff, it's actually very good. Um, yeah, it's just a very good movie. I'd recommend it. Like I said, it is kind of a select taste, um, but it is a good film. I definitely wouldn't say avoid it, but at the same time, it's not a film I plan on buying anytime soon. So Jeff, It Lives at Home, you guys, I give it an 8 out of 10. It's a good film, but be forewarned before watching it, there is quite a few flaws with it as well.